I've seen everyone doing this and I wanted to get in on the action. I thought it would be fun to read other people's favorite books and give my little thoughts on them. We are starting this beautiful series with Ariel Bissett's favorite books. I am not reading every single favorite book, but 3 most talked about favorites. So we have my initial impressions today, and then I'll vlog about some of the other things that come up, as well as a final review. Okay folks, so I started this video idea like 6 months ago. So you're just gonna have to ignore any indiscrepancies in the background, in my hair, and just whatever. It is what it is. I am a mood reader, so it's hard for me to keep a TBR. And I read like 5 books at the same time, and it starts out great, and then I get overwhelmed, and here we are. Here we are. So just get used to it. It's fine. I will be reading Motherhood by Sheila Heti. It's a lady thinking a lot about what it means to be a mother. Does she want to be a mother? Is it too late to be a mother? It's a very, from my understanding, cerebral book. It's a thinking book. It's about a woman. She does a lot of thinking. We'll see how this goes. I can see it going either way as far as me liking it. Then we have All We Shall Know by Donald Ryan. I have to say, it's material I would normally never pick up. It's about a woman, a slightly older woman, 33 years old, and she is in Ireland and gets pregnant by a 17-year-old boy. And I think this woman's married. Not to the 17-year-old. So that feels very stressful. That feels like a lot of drama. And I don't understand the point in having drama that isn't around a dragon. Like, I don't know, like contemporary dramas are very hit and miss for me. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see. Maybe I'll be surprised. But I'm already stressed. Just knowing the summary, I'm stressed. But it's small, so I'll be fine. And then finally we have Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. And this is just a classic I've been meaning to get around to, but it's a little bit of a chunker, so I've put it off. Also, it's young adult, it's, you know, middle grade coming of age, so I'm kind of out of that genre now, but Ariel read it recently-ish, and she's around my age and still loved it, so there's still hope. We'll see, we'll see. You can tell Ariel reads relatively widely, because these are very different stories, different genres. I think the only thing that's a commonality between these 3, ugh, my nose, is that they're not fantasy. They're not sci-fi, they are very contemporary. I guess Anne of Green Gables isn't technically, I guess it's historical fiction, but I think it was contemporary when she wrote it, so I don't know how that genre works. Anyway, so I will stop rambling now and I will start reading, and I will see you later. Okay, so I'm not far in. Just got done with page 14. I don't know how consistently she's gonna do this, but there's a style of flipping a coin. Like asking a question and then flipping a coin and getting a yes or no response from the coin. And I'm bored. I was trying to think of a nice way to say it, but it was like, it's just a really like staccato style to write in. It's not drawing my interest. Mainly because it doesn't feel like a meaningful, it doesn't feel meaningful. I don't know. It just seems so weird. And for things that are peculiar to ask a yes/no question to for a coin, like, did that happen on January 1st? No. December 30th? No. And then she starts arguing with a coin, being like, actually, I don't think that's true. Just like, what are we, I don't know. It's a character study kind of book, so we'll see. I have finished Motherhood, and I have some thoughts. So for those who don't know, this book is about a woman who's approaching her 40s and is contemplating becoming a mother. Should she have children? Should she not? Her age is kind of putting a demand on her figuring out an answer. There's kind of like a ticking clock, so to speak. And on one hand, she's a writer and feels very fulfilled with the life that she has. On the other hand, everyone says how amazing it is to have a kid, and like this is just a fundamental human experience, and will she regret missing out on it? As well as like there's moments where she's like, oh, I could probably have a baby, or like, oh, I'd love to have a baby with this guy that I'm with. And then moments where she's like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have a kid, which I think for anyone who has the choice about having children, I think is very relatable. I personally do not want children, but I can imagine how hard it is if you're not sure. It's a big decision. I thought it was interesting how she compared it to other monumental moments of things where it's like, everyone talks about marriage and your wedding being this big ordeal, this life-changing moment, and for her it was just like a cool event on a day, and then like life just continued on. She makes some really good points about the idea that no one really trusts a woman's decision on what she wants to do with her body and whether or not she wants to have kids, because people are like, oh, you'll change your mind. Even biologically, you know, every month your body's like, hey, maybe now's the time. I think a lot of my problems with this book have to do with the fact that it's autofiction. So for those who don't know, autofiction is autobiographical fiction, i.e. people who are scaredy cats to make it a memoir. Sorry. It really showcased to me how I have different expectations for things depending on if they're fiction or nonfiction. So I have a little bit more leniency and leeway for nonfiction characters, i.e. real people, because they might be weird, they might be annoying, they might do wrong things, but like, I don't know, like I think there's an interesting psychology there that I'm willing to pursue more because it's someone's truth and their lived experience, rather than a fictional character where it's like, I'm reading this for enjoyment. If I'm not enjoying the person I'm forced to stick with the whole book through, that's not a good sign. From what I've said so far, you might be like, oh, she hated it. And there was moments where I was definitely annoyed that I still had to read this. But there were some nuggets that were really interesting. There were some lines that really stuck with me. There were some concepts that I found fascinating. I think if you are someone who struggles with the idea of motherhood or is currently weighing your options, this might resonate more with you and might be a more fascinating read than it was for me. Overall, I'm glad I read it, but I don't know how many people I'm recommending it to, if that makes sense. Heyo. So, as you can maybe tell by my hair, some time has passed. I'm about halfway through Anne of Green Gables right now. I'm finally getting into it. I was a little worried at first. Started off right away with a lot of like flowery prose and descriptions, and I'm like, I might get tired of that pretty quick. So for those who don't know, this is the story about an orphan girl who gets taken in by an elderly brother and sister because they're wanting help on the farm and they thought they were getting a boy, and then she shows up and they're like, you're not a boy, and she wins everyone over. Anne is a child of monologues and tangents. She likes to talk about her thoughts and her imagination way too much. She just goes on for a lengthy paragraph all the time, and in the beginning I'm like, hot damn, this would annoy me so much if I had like this child just appeared in front of me and just wouldn't shut up. It's finally kind of evening out a bit. I guess I just got used to her. It just took a minute. Either that or like, thankfully I think a lot of the other characters help even out the story. Like if everyone was like Anne, I think that'd be way too much, but everyone else is kind of like, this girl. And so you're just like, I think it gives you as the reader kind of permission to be like, this girl, she's a bit much. We love her, but she's a bit much. But yeah, so I'm actually enjoying it now. I'm about halfway through, like I said. Bit surprised that I'm enjoying it just because I was so dubious at the beginning. Yeah, catch you on the flippy flip. I got more reading to do.
Penguin by Kelly Donahue.
Oh my god, Apple!
6 months later.
Today, I am going to be talking about Ariel Bissett's favorite books. What did I think? These are very different than what I would normally pick out for myself, and we're just gonna like dissect what it says about her and like what I thought of these books. So let's like get into it. First we have Motherhood. I thought there's some really good nuggets. I would have never gotten to those good nuggets because I would have put the book down if it wasn't for this video. It's such a mixed bag. The style is very experimental. It just annoyed me. She's a weird gal. There was like a lot of shit in here where I'm like, I don't know what the point of having this is. I feel like the good nuggets are really good and could have been an article or an essay, and I would have shared it with all my friends. I would have loved it. I can see why people would be drawn to this book because of the topic if they were invested in it. I am childless, but I've never struggled with that question. I never was like, oh no, ooh, pro and con list. I was just like, nah, I'm good. I'd rather be an auntie, swish their cheeks, give them back, and then have someone else worry about college and whether or not they're a sociopath. Like, that doesn't seem like my idea of a good time. So what this says about Ariel, she likes a thinking book. Like, not a whole lot happens in this book. It's very contemplative, philosophical, thoughtful book. Next we have All We Shall Know by Donal Ryan. This was a really intriguing book. The prose is out of this world. It is so poetic and not like in an over-the-top dense way, but just like, ugh, just hits you on a like soul level. Really glad I read it. Now, it's interesting because I didn't love the second half of it as much, and I don't know if that's because I put it down for about a week because I got busy with other things and I just kind of like fell out of the spell that had been cast over me with it, or I don't know. I feel like in some ways the story moves forward without the main character, and there's just like this kind of disconnect that felt weird to me, but it didn't feel untrue, if that makes sense. Like, I could see it happening. It felt relatively realistic, but I can't say I'd be like, oh, I wanted to have ended this way instead of how it did. So really interesting read, and I was very compelled by it as a person who picked it up not caring for what it was about. So if you heard that summary and you're like, oh, that's fascinating, I'd be really interested in reading it, this might be your new favorite book, fam. Now, what does this say about Ariel? Again, you have a woman, woman main character. She's thinking a lot. She's thinking about the consequences of her actions, very much asking questions of like, what does it mean to be a wife? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to be a daughter? And that contemplation, again, it's very interesting that there's like this through line of women in like a deep mode or like turning point, having to think deeply about stuff. She's a thinker, which I think we all know by now. And last we have Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, a classic I hadn't read up to this point, so I'm glad to finally be able to check it off my list. It took me a little while to get into, but it really grows on you, or at least it did for me. By the end, I was really invested in Anne and this little world, her little world. It was just, there's something really quaint and wholesome of like kind of, you know, the children's genre of knowing everything's gonna work out in the end. But, so it had that flavor, but it was really interesting because it didn't feel like a kid's book. It felt like it was a kid's book for adults, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the lessons aren't lessons that I feel like kids had to learn. It's the adults in the story and like the adults reading it need to learn of like, don't forget your imagination. Like all the things that like Anne is teaching, what are their names? The Cuthberts are lessons that we adults need to learn and remember. So I don't know, that was really interesting. Other thing too, I know it's a series, but I didn't realize how far in Anne's life this first book goes. It is wild. She's 11 at the start. I think she's 17 or 18 by the end of this first book. So that was kind of shocking because I didn't know that. It was a lovely little read. It's so funny because I can't unsee now the connection between Anne and Ariel. Like, Ariel is so much like Anne. I'm like, it's no wonder she loved this book. They both have this really charismatic, uplifting personality. They take on new challenges. They have quite an imagination. They love like certain words and turns of phrase and love going off on tangents and storytelling. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is Ariel's like fictional counterpart. Absolutely wild. Again, female protagonist who thinks a lot, who cares a lot, that is contemplating life and what they want to do with their life and what direction they want to head and what kind of person they want to be. And it's one of those things where like if you put these three side by side, I don't think that connection is obvious. But then through the lens of it being Ariel's favorite books, like there's just such a commonality of how do we want to handle the relationships in our lives? What are the milestones and landmarks of our life, and how are we wanting to handle those or pivot, or how's society going to react to our choices regarding that? So fascinating. Really cool to have gone on this journey, read books I would have never read before. Thank you, Ariel, and thank you guys for finishing this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think it's cool to, you know, jump outside of your little box, your little reading oasis, and try out new things from time to time. I'm excited to continue the series. Hopefully it takes me less than 6 months to do the next one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time. Bye.